The rain soaked through my jacket, but I barely felt it. My fingers were clenched tight around the 2 bus tickets in my pocket. Greyhound. One way to California. Our dream. She'll be here, I told myself, shifting my weight. The neon sign of Frank's Diner buzzed and flickered behind me, our spot. I checked my watch again. She was 10 minutes late. My stomach twisted, but I pushed the feeling down. She was just running late. That was all. Headlights cut through the curtain of rain. A car, not the bus. A sleek, silver BMW that looked alien on this wet, cracked street. It glided to a stop right in front of me. The passenger door opened. Chloe stepped out. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Something sleek and black, not her usual jeans and my hoodie. Chloe. My voice sounded small against the drumming rain. She didn't run to me. She just stood there, the car door like a shield between us. The driver's window slid down. Damian Reed leaned across the passenger seat, his blonde hair perfect, a smirk playing on his lips. All set, babe? Just a minute, Chloe said, her voice flat. She finally looked at me. I got the tickets, I blurted out, pulling them from my pocket. The paper was already going soft from the rain. The bus leaves in 45 minutes. We can still make it. She didn't even glance at them. Leo, we need to talk. So talk. We can talk on the bus. Or in California. We can talk anywhere. I was babbling, hearing the panic in my own words. I'm not getting on that bus. The words were simple. Clean. They hit me like a physical blow. What? Why? This is our plan. Our life. It was a fantasy, Leo. She hugged herself, but it looked stiff, like a performance. California. Coding school. Living on ramen. That's not a future. That's a punishment. I stepped forward, the puddles splashing my worn-out sneakers. It's our start. Together. We build it together. That's the whole point. Damian gave a soft, bored sigh from the car. Chloe's eyes flickered toward the sound. It gave her resolve. This isn't building. This is struggling. I can't do it. She reached into her small purse. When her hand emerged, she was holding the little silver promise ring. The one I'd saved from 3 months of bagging groceries. She held it out to me. I stared at it. No. Take it, Leo. Why? The question was a raw scrape in my throat. She took one more step and pressed the ring into my wet palm. Her fingers were warm against my skin for the last time. Because love doesn't pay the bills. She turned and got back into the car. The door shut with a solid, expensive thunk. I stood there, the dissolving bus tickets in one hand, the cheap ring burning a hole in the other. Through the rain-streaked window, I saw Damian say something. She laughed. A bright, fake sound I'd never heard from her before. The car pulled away. The red taillights blurred into 2 hazy smears, then vanished around the corner. I was alone with the hissing rain and the buzzing neon. I looked down. The ink on the tickets had run, the words, San Francisco, now just a blue stain on pulpy paper. I crumpled them in my fist, the ring biting into my palm. A cold, hard certainty settled in my chest, freezing the hollow ache. I will never be this powerless again. The Reed Corporation proposal was a work of art. A beautifully documented obituary. A sharp knock, and my office door opened. Sarah walked in, a tablet in one hand, 2 coffees in the other. She set one on the desk in front of me. You've been staring at that for an hour. It's not going to change, she said, sipping her coffee. I'm savoring it, I said, not looking up. The little details. The way their quarterly losses are bleeding out in paragraph 4. Poetic. She tapped her tablet. Your 10:30 is here. The Reed delegation just checked in downstairs. Damian Reed is leading it. Looks like he brought his own ego as a co-presenter. A cold, familiar thrill shot through me. I leaned back in my chair. Perfect. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You're enjoying this a little too much. This is about more than market share, isn't it? It's always about more than market share. I stood up, walking to the floor-to-ceiling window. My city glittered below. But today, it's personal. I didn't need to explain. Sarah knew the broad strokes. The kid with the bus tickets. The memory hit, sharp and unbidden. Not the rain, but the grind that came after. The dorm room was so small my bed touched my desk. The glow of the laptop was the only light. Ramen noodles steamed in a cup, the smell like poverty and determination. My mom's voice, tight with worry on the phone, "Are you eating, Leo?" "I'm fine, Mom." "Really?" A year later, my dad's voice, firm with belief, "We remortgaged." "It's not a loan, son. It's an investment. In you." The pressure of that almost broke me. It was a heavier jacket than the one I'd worn in the rain. Then, the first break. David Chen, a venture capitalist, after my demo. He'd said, "This is good. Raw, but good. Why are you doing this?" I hadn't mentioned a girl. I'd said, "I never want to be at the mercy of someone else's door again." He'd nodded. "That's a better reason than money." "Leo." Sarah's voice pulled me back. "You're doing that thing where you disappear." I turned from the window. Just remembering the price of admission. And was it worth it? I picked up the proposal, my name, Leo Carter, CEO, Apex Dynamics, embossed on the cover. I looked at the Reed Corp logo, a stylized R that always looked arrogant to me. We're about to find out. I straightened my cufflinks. Not the cheap kind. Is the conference room ready? Imposing, sterile, and perfectly chilled to make them uncomfortable, Sarah confirmed. Standard hostel procedure. Good. I headed for the door, the proposal under my arm. It felt like a weapon. Let's go. The lion's den awaits. Sarah fell into step beside me. Just remember, she said quietly. You're not walking in as prey. The elevator doors slid open. I stepped inside, my reflection sharp in the polished brass. I know, I said, as the doors closed. Today, I'm the hunter. The Reed Corp team was already seated when Sarah and I walked in. Damian Reed sat at the head of their side of the table, as if he still owned the room. He gave me a slow, appraising look that was meant to intimidate. Carter, he said, not standing. I have to admit, I was surprised you wanted to meet personally. These things are usually handled by, well, by people like them. He waved a dismissive hand toward Sarah. Sarah just smiled and set her tablet down. I handle the details, Mr. Reed. Mr. Carter handles the future. I took my seat directly across from him. Damian. Thanks for coming. I know it's a trip from the historical district. His eye twitched. We're not here for small talk. You made an offer. It's insulting. His assistant, a wiry man named James, slid a folder forward. Our valuation is firm. The Reed brand carries a legacy that your tech startup simply cannot comprehend. I didn't touch the folder. I comprehend numbers, James. May I? I nodded to the main screen. Sarah tapped her tablet. Our presentation lit up the wall. Graphs, debt ratios, quarterly freefalls. This is your legacy for the past 18 months, I said, my voice calm. A 70% drop in market share. Debt surpassing assets by, I paused, clicking to the next slide, $42 million. Your brand isn't an asset anymore, Damien. It's an anchor. Damien's face was turning a faint pink. You don't understand our structure. Our holdings are being liquidated by your creditors as we speak. I cut him off. I clicked to a final, simple slide. It contained only 2 lines. Apex Dynamics offer, buyout of all assets and settled debt. Condition, full operational control. Current leadership transitioned out. The silence was absolute. James spluttered. Transitioned out? This is outrageous. You're talking about removing the Reed family from their own company. I'm talking about saving what's left of it from the people who ran it into the ground, I said, locking eyes with Damien. He finally leaned forward, his voice a low sneer. You think you can buy your way into my world? With your app money and your rented suits? You're still the scholarship kid playing dress-up. The old sting tried to rise. I smothered it with a cold smile. The scholarship kid just priced your world out of existence. The offer is the only one you'll get. Sign today, and the creditors are off your back by 5 p.m. Wait until tomorrow, I shrugged. I hear bankruptcy court is drafty. He stared at the damning numbers on the screen. I saw it, the moment the bluster drained away, replaced by the panic of a man who'd never truly faced consequences. He shoved his chair back so hard it slammed into the wall. This isn't over, Carter. For you, I said quietly. I think it is. He stormed out, James scrambling after him. The door shuttered in its frame. Sarah let out a low whistle. Well. That was emotionally satisfying. It was business, I said, but my hands were steady for the first time all morning. The cold thrill was back, warming into a quiet victory. I started gathering my papers. Through the glass wall of the conference room, I saw movement in the executive lounge across the hall. A cleaning cart. A woman in a simple gray uniform, head down, polishing the already gleaming surface of a side table. Something about the slope of her shoulders. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. My breath died in my throat. She turned slightly, reaching for a spray bottle. The world narrowed to that pane of glass. 10 years fell away in a second. The rain. The dress. The ring. It was Chloe. I stood frozen, the papers in my hand forgotten. Sarah was saying something. Need to send the formal offer letter within the hour. Leo. Give me a minute, I said, my voice strangely distant. I couldn't look away from the glass. Chloe bent to pick up the cloth she'd dropped. When she straightened, her gaze swept absently across the hallway, and locked directly onto mine. Her face went white. Not pale. Sheet white. The spray bottle slipped from her other hand, clattering on the marble tile. She didn't even flinch at the sound. She just stared. I saw the journey in her eyes. Confusion. Then a sharp, startling shock. Then a flood of shame so deep it seemed to hollow her out. Finally, a crushing recognition. Leo. Time stretched. The hum of the conference room lights was the only sound in my head. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I simply held her gaze and gave one slow, slight nod. An acknowledgement. Nothing more. Then I turned my back. Let's go, I said to Sarah, striding toward the door. What was that about? She asked, hurrying to catch up. Nothing. We entered the hallway. I didn't look toward the lounge. I felt her presence there like a cold spot. Just an old ghost. Back in my office, the adrenaline morphed into a jittery static. I couldn't sit. I paced to the window. Sarah, I need a due diligence file on all non-executive REIT staff at that building. Cleaning, maintenance, administrative. The full roster. She stopped typing. The staff? Why? That's not part of the asset valuation. It is for me. I turned to face her. Discreetly. Don't make a thing of it. She studied me for a long moment, her professional mask softening with a hint of concern. This is about the ghost, isn't it? Just get me the list. She nodded slowly. I'll have it by end of day. The hours dragged. My focus was shot. Every spreadsheet blurred. All I could see was the look on her face. That shame. It should have felt sweet. It just felt heavy. An email from Sarah arrived at 4:58 p.m. The subject line, Reed Building, Support Staff Roster. My cursor hovered over it. I took a breath and clicked. It was a dry, alphabetical spreadsheet. Names, positions, ID numbers. My eyes scanned down. Dawson, Mark, Maintenance. Elena, Maria, Housekeeping. Fletcher, Chloe, Housekeeping. There it was. Fletcher, Chloe. Housekeeping. The confirmation was a physical punch, right below the ribs. The air left my lungs. Housekeeping. Love doesn't pay the bills. Her words from a lifetime ago echoed in the silent, expensive office. Ironic. Karmic. It should have been perfect. So why did I feel nothing but a hollow chill? That night, I stood before the wall of glass in my penthouse, a glass of water in my hand. The city glittered, a kingdom I'd built myself. I had won. I had absolute, concrete proof that I had surpassed Damian Reed in every way he valued. And she was there, cleaning up his mess. I replayed that moment in the hallway. Her shock. Her shame. The victory felt like ash. I took a sip of water, the cool liquid doing nothing to quench the strange dryness in my throat. I wasn't the boy in the rain anymore. I had all the power I'd sworn to get. And for the first time, I wondered what it was actually for. The Metropolitan Charity Gala was a sea of black ties and calculated smiles. I owned a table. The Reeds, I knew, were here on a borrowed invitation, clinging to the last frayed thread of their social relevance. Target at 3 o'clock, Sarah murmured, sipping her champagne. She was my date in the most professional sense. Looking, hungry. I followed her gaze. Damian Reed stood near a potted palm, his smile strained as he talked to a bored-looking donor. He saw me. His smile froze, then morphed into something more aggressive. He excused himself and started cutting through the crowd toward me. Showtime, I said softly. Play nice, Sarah said. The press is here. I'm always nice. Damian arrived, a too hearty grin on his face. Carter. Fancy seeing you here. I suppose these events are a good tax write-off for the newly rich. Damian, I nodded. I see you made the guest list. That's good. Networking is important when you're between opportunities. His eye twitched. I'm exploring several options. The Reed name still opens doors. It seems to be closing more than a few lately, I said pleasantly. But I'm sure it'll work out. His civility was a thin veneer. I could see the desperation beneath it, a frantic gleam in his eyes. He was a man watching the last lifeboat row away. Then, I saw her. She was hovering at the edge of the room, looking lost. Chloe. She wore a burgundy dress that was at least 5 years out of style, the fabric looking a little tired. She was Damian's +1. Of course she was. He followed my gaze. A mean, satisfied smirk twisted his lips. He waved her over. Darling. Come say hello to an old acquaintance. She walked over, her eyes fixed on the floor. When she finally looked up, first at Damian, then at me, the humiliation was so complete it was almost painful to see. You remember Chloe, don't you, Carter? Damian said, his voice oily. He put a possessive hand on her lower back, and I saw her stiffen. She's been keeping busy. The cruelty in his tone was a deliberate, public knife. He was showing her off as his fallen prize, reminding us both of our places in his crumbling world. Chloe's cheeks burned. She couldn't meet my eyes. "Leo," she whispered. "Chloe," I said, my voice neutral. 1,000 sharp replies danced on my tongue. I could eviscerate him. I could pity her. But the sight of her, shrinking under his touch, just made me tired. Damien pressed on, enjoying his little power play. "It's a tough job market for some, you know. But we all do what we have to. Right, sweetheart?" Sarah shifted beside me, a silent signal of her disgust. I looked directly at Damien, then let my gaze flicker to Chloe for just a second. "I remember everyone who helped shape my journey," I said. The double meaning landed perfectly. Damien's smirk faltered, unsure if he'd been complimented or insulted. Chloe flinched as if I'd slapped her. I raised my glass a fraction of an inch. "Enjoy the evening." I didn't wait for a reply. I turned, Sarah falling into step beside me as we melted back into the crowd. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel the silent misery radiating from them like cold air. After a few steps, Sarah let out a low breath. "Wow. He's even more of a cockroach in person." "He's scared," I said, taking a flute of water from a passing tray. "And scared people lash out at whoever's closest." "She looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her," Sarah said, not without sympathy. I thought of the polished marble floor, the clatter of a spray bottle. The dated burgundy dress. Love doesn't pay the bills. "She made her choice a long time ago," I said, my voice flat. Everyone in that circle did. But as we walked away, the hollow feeling from the other night returned. This wasn't victory. This was just watching a sad, old play I'd already seen the ending to. The script was just more pathetic than I'd imagined. The Reed building after hours was a tomb. My footsteps echoed on the marble. Sarah had the keys, the deal closed at 9 a.m. tomorrow. This was my final walkthrough. At least, that's what I told her. "I'll be 15 minutes, I'd said. "Sure you will," she'd replied, not believing me for a second. I found myself outside the main conference room. The lights were on inside. I heard the soft, rhythmic sound of scrubbing. I pushed the door open. Chloe was on her hands and knees, a brush in her hand, attacking a stubborn spot on the carpet. The same carpet Damien had stood on. She jerked upright, scrambling to her feet when she saw me. The brush clattered into her plastic bucket. "Leo." I didn't think anyone was here. Clearly. I stepped inside, letting the door size shut behind me. The room felt smaller. Just a final inspection. She wiped her hands on her gray uniform, a nervous, futile gesture. "It's almost done." I was just. "I can see." I walked slowly along the length of the table, my fingers brushing the polished surface. "Do they have you clean this room often?" She swallowed. "Only after important meetings." A tense silence stretched. The unspoken history of this room, of us, pressed in from the walls. "Leo, about the other night, at the gala," she began, her voice thin. "Don't. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For how he acted. For everything." I stopped pacing and looked at her. Really looked. The tired lines around her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. The defensive hunch of her shoulders. "Which everything are we talking about, Chloe? The gala? Or the rainy night at Frank's diner?" She flinched. "You're never going to let that go, are you?" "I let you go a long time ago," I said, my voice calm. "Cold. I'm just here for the building." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. "You think it was easy? You think I just woke up and decided to be the villain? My mom was sick. The medical bills. Damien's family promised to help. It wasn't about a car, Leo. It was about not drowning. I'd imagined this moment for years. The explanation. The plea for understanding. Now that it was here, I felt nothing but a detached curiosity. So you traded me for a lifeline. I get it. It was a business decision. Don't say it like that. How should I say it? I took a step closer. You presented your terms, love doesn't pay the bills. I received the message. Transaction complete. A tear escaped, tracing a clean line through the faint dust on her cheek. I was 18 and terrified. I didn't know how any of this worked. And now you do. I gestured around the room, at her uniform, at the bucket. How's it working out for you? Her composure cracked. She looked down, her shoulders shaking with a silent sob. I waited. I didn't offer a handkerchief. I didn't move. I just asked the question that had been hanging between us since I saw her through the glass. So. Was it worth it? She couldn't look at me. The silence was her only answer, louder than any word. I nodded slowly. The acquisition finalizes tomorrow at 9. All non-essential Reed staff will have their positions reviewed by the new management. I said it like I was reading from a manual. Termination or reassignment. Standard procedure. Her head snapped up, fresh fear in her eyes. My job will be evaluated. I held her gaze, letting the uncertainty, the fear, hang in the air between us. It was a cliffhanger, and I'd written it. I turned and walked to the door. My hand on the knob, I paused without looking back. Finish up here, Chloe. The new owner expects a clean slate. I walked out, leaving her alone with the silence, the bucket, and the ghost of every choice she'd ever made. At 9:02 a.m., I watched from the executive suite as Damien Reed was escorted from the building by 2 security guards. He carried a single cardboard box. He didn't look back. At 9:15, I was sitting in his old leather chair. It was still warm. Sarah walked in, followed by a woman from HR, Linda. Linda placed a single sheet of paper on the desk in front of me. The reviewed staff list from the acquired assets, Mr. Carter, Linda said. Green for retain. Red for termination. Yellow for further review. My eyes went straight to the reds. Fletcher, Chloe was the third name down. Recommendations are based on role redundancy and performance reviews from the previous administration, Linda added. Thank you, Linda, I said. I'll need a moment. She nodded and left. Sarah came around the desk to look. Clean cut, she said, tapping Chloe's name. This is the easiest one. No ties to the new structure. Let them all go. It's the most efficient path. Fresh start. I stared at the name. Fletcher, Chloe. Termination. I saw the 18-year-old in the rain, handing back a ring. I saw the woman in the conference room, scrubbing a carpet, tears cutting through dust. Is it? I asked quietly. Is it what? The easiest path. I leaned back in the chair. It creaked, a sound Damien must have heard 1,000 times. Or is it just the one that requires the least thought? Sarah crossed her arms. Don't overcomplicate this, Leo. This isn't about her. This is about the company. Sentiment is a liability. I'm not being sentimental. I picked up a pen. It felt heavy. I'm being strategic. How is keeping a maid from a failed rival strategic? I didn't answer her. Instead, I drew a single, decisive line through the word termination next to Chloe's name. In the margin, I wrote, *reassign, logistics department entry level. 90-day probation, *, I initialed it. I slid the paper back to Sarah. See that HR processes that. She read my note, her eyebrows climbing. Logistics? Leo, this is a test I finished for her. For her. And for me. Process it, please. She held my gaze for a long moment, then sighed, a reluctant smile touching her lips. You're a strange kind of vindictive, you know that. I prefer pragmatic with style, I said. Now, is Damian Reed still in the building? He's being processed out in security. Why? Have him brought to the main conference room. Tell him it's about a severance oversight. Damian sat across from me, his face a mask of bitter resignation. What now, Carter? Come to gloat from your new throne. I don't gloat, I said. I opened a folder. I just tie up loose ends. Your father gave my team full access to the archives during due diligence. We found some interesting buried files. I slid a single sheet across the table. It was a financial audit from 3 years prior, marked confidential. It highlighted a series of reckless, unauthorized investments made under Damian's vice presidency. Investments that had bled millions. His face lost all its color. Where did you get this? My father swore he destroyed these. He protected you, I said. He hid your mistakes, let the company take the fall to save the family name. But the company's gone now. All that's left is the truth. I tapped the paper. This is why the ship sank, Damian. Not market conditions. Not bad luck. You. You were the hole in the hull. He stared at the evidence of his own failure, his hands trembling. The last of his pride crumbled. His legacy wasn't just lost, it was exposed as a fraud. Get out, I said, my voice quiet. The building is mine. The truth is yours. I think that's more than fair. He didn't speak. He just stood up, the damning paper in his hand, and walked out, looking smaller than he ever had. I was finally alone in the silence. The revenge was complete, but it didn't taste like I thought it would. It just tasted like dust, and the faint, lingering scent of cheap cleaning spray. Sarah's voice came through the intercom. She's here. Conference room B. Send her in. I stood by the window, my back to the door. I heard it open, the hesitant click of shoes on tile, then the soft sigh as it closed. Hello. Her voice was small, braced for impact. I turned. Chloe stood just inside the room, wearing simple slacks and a blouse. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, waiting for the axe to fall. Have a seat, I said, moving to the head of the table. She sat, her back rigid, eyes fixed on the empty table in front of her. A single manila folder sat by my elbow. The acquisition is complete, I began. All former Reed staff have been notified of their status. She gave a tight, nervous nod. I understand. I cleaned out my locker this morning. She finally looked up, her gaze drifting to the folder. The termination slip was surely inside. I just want to say, thank you. For the other night. For listening. Even if you hate me. I didn't confirm or deny. I just opened the folder. I slid a single sheet of paper across the smooth surface toward her. She stared at it, confusion wrinkling her brow. It wasn't a pink slip. It was an offer letter. Her eyes darted over the text, widening with each line. This says Apex Dynamics. Logistics Coordinator, Tier 1. She looked up, utterly lost. This is a mistake. It's not. But, it's an office job. With a salary. And benefits. She said the words as if they were in a foreign language. This isn't, you're not firing me. No, I said. I'm offering you a job. An entry-level position in my logistics department. It involves tracking shipments, data entry, coordinating with warehouse teams. It's a 90-day probationary period. The standards are high. You'll be evaluated weekly. If you're late, if your work is sloppy, if you cause one single problem, you're gone. No second chances. She was trembling now, her fingers hovering over the paper as if it might burn her. Why? Why would you do this? I leaned forward, clasping my hands on the table. Listen carefully, Chloe. This isn't forgiveness. This isn't a favor. This is a lesson. A lesson, she whispered. You stood in the rain and told me love doesn't pay the bills. You believed money was the only thing that built a future. That it was something you got from someone else. I kept my voice firm, unemotional. You were wrong. This, I said, tapping the offer letter, is how you actually build a future. Not with a ring from someone. Not by cleaning up after them. You build it with your own hands. With your own work. One day at a time. It's slow. It's hard. It's often humbling. But it's real. And it's yours. A tear spilled over and ran down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. You're giving me a chance I don't deserve. I'm not giving you anything, I corrected her. I'm presenting you with a choice. You can walk out that door with your pride intact, and go find another place to clean. Or you can sign that paper, walk into a department where everyone will know you're the ex-maid who got a pity job from the CEO, and you can prove, to me, to them, and most importantly to yourself, that you're more than the choices you made at 18. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the HVAC. I saw the war in her eyes. Shame. Fear. A tiny, fragile spark of something else. Hope. She looked down at the offer letter. At the salary, which was more than she'd ever made. At the chance. Her hand was still shaking as she reached for the pen lying beside the folder. She didn't look at me as she flipped to the signature line. It's a test, isn't it? She said, her voice thick. For both of us, I admitted. She nodded, as if that was the only honest answer she expected. She put the pen to paper and signed her name. Chloe Fletcher. The stroke was tentative at first, then grew firmer. She pushed the paper back to me, her eyes meeting mine. They were red-rimmed, but clearer than I'd seen them in weeks. I won't waste it, she said. See that you don't, I replied. Orientation is tomorrow at 8. HR will send you the details. Don't be late. She stood up, gave me one last, unreadable look, and walked out, leaving the signed contract between us. I stared at her signature. It was just a business decision. That's all this was. So why did my heart feel like it was finally, for the first time in 10 years, coming up for air? 4 weeks. The logistics department's weekly reports landed on my desk every Friday. Chloe's name was never flagged for issues. Once, it was highlighted for exceeding a processing quota. Sarah dropped the latest file in front of me. Your project is turning out to be a surprisingly solid employee. Quiet. Punctual. Her supervisor says she stays late to learn the software. Good, I said, not looking up from my screen. You ever talk to her? Sarah asked, lingering. About what? The weather? The profound irony of her career path? I shook my head. Our interactions begin and end with forwarded emails. It's better that way. I saw her sometimes, in the atrium or moving through a hallway. She'd give a small, tight nod. I'd return it. We were ghosts to each other, haunting the same building. I'd catch a glimpse of the determined girl she might have been, buried under years of regret. But the trust, the warmth, that bridge was ash. Dinner with my parents. My mom squeezed my hand. We're so proud of you, Leo. But this new building, this whole Reed business, it feels heavy. My dad nodded, cutting his steak. Son, you won. Don't let the victory poison you. Holding on to that old hurt, it's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to get sick. I'm not holding on to anything, I said, but it sounded automatic, even to me. You bought his company, you gave that girl a job, my mom said, choosing her words carefully. That's a lot of energy to spend on the past. When do you get to be free of it? I had no answer for her. The next morning, Sarah came in with the Business News Digest. Update on the Reed fallout. Damien's personal debts have been called in. Several of those bad investments you uncovered are now public. There's talk of a lawsuit from former shareholders. It's a full-blown scandal. She watched my face, waiting for a smirk, a sign of satisfaction. I felt nothing. Just a hollow space where the revenge should have been. Okay, I said. Just okay, she pressed. You dismantled his life. This is what you wanted, isn't it? It was, I said. Now it's just news. That night, I didn't go home. I drove. My car seemed to find its own way to the old neighborhood. Frank's Diner was still there, the neon sign buzzing the same tired tune. I slid into a cracked vinyl booth. A young waitress brought me a coffee I didn't order. I sat there, staring at the empty seat across from me. I waited for the anger to come. For the memory of the rain and the BMW to sting. But it was just a memory now. A sad story about two scared kids. The closure wasn't in the news about Damien's ruin. It wasn't in Chloe's shame or her new desk. It was here, in this sticky booth, realizing I could sit with the ghost and feel nothing. The anger that had fueled me for a decade had finally burned out. It hadn't exploded, it had just consumed itself, leaving behind only warm, quiet embers. They didn't heat anything anymore. They just proved the fire was over. I left a 20 on the table for the coffee and walked out. The night air was cool. For the first time in a long time, it just felt like air. 1 year later. I passed Chloe in the main hallway this morning. She was carrying a tablet, dressed in professional attire a world away from gray housekeeping polyester. Mr. Carter, she said, with a polite, professional nod. Chloe, I replied, my tone matching hers. We kept walking. No more lingering glances. No charged silence. She'd been promoted to logistics associate 6 months ago. She was building her own future, with her own hands. The past was a closed book on a shelf we both agreed not to touch. Now, I stood on the roof terrace of the new Apex Tower, looking at a skyline I'd chosen. It was different from the view I'd stared at a year ago, haunted and hollow. The door clicked open behind me. Sarah walked over, handing me a steaming coffee. The blueprints for the West Coast expansion are on your desk, she said. They look good. Aggressive. I like aggressive, I said, taking a sip. The coffee was perfect. She stood beside me, following my gaze. You seem lighter these days. I was. The weight was gone. I finally understood it, the revenge was never about making her my maid. It was about me ceasing to be the boy she left in the rain. I wasn't that boy anymore. I wasn't Damien's boss, either. I was my own. I took one last look at the glittering horizon, then turned my back on it. Come on, I said to Sarah, walking toward the rooftop door. Let's go build something.